Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki. As always, I got Jackson McCurry rolling along with me as we prepare you for the Browns and Baltimore Ravens on Sunday in the season opener. How you doing today, Jack?
Doing good, man. We're finally here. There was times during these last 5-6 months that we questioned whether there was actually going to be football. But last night the season opened with the Chiefs and the Texans, and now we're sitting here 2 days away from the Browns season opener. So thankful we're getting back to somewhat of a normalcy, and definitely ready for some football this weekend.
Yeah, it was a blowout game last night for most of it, and hopefully that's not the case when it comes to Browns Ravens on Sunday. But as we prepare for that matchup, Kevin Stefanski said today that he will be calling the plays. There has been, much speculation on whether it would be him or somebody else that would do it. I know it's been a hot debate amongst Browns fans and media personnel about would Stefanski be taking on too much if he were to call plays in his first year as head coach. I know that's been a topic because of Freddie Kitchens doing it last year with him being a first year head coach, and obviously that did not go well for him. But when you look at it this year, Jack, what do you think the major differences are, and do you believe that Stefanski is doing the right thing by calling the plays as a rookie head coach?
Yeah, I do think this was the right decision to let Kevin Stefanski call the plays, just in spite of everything that's gone on. The fact that there wasn't no OTAs during the summer, the lack of preseason games, which one of the things Stefanski said in his conference call was the plan was with the preseason games that he was going to let Van Pelt call plays, and then he was going to make a decision from there. So it makes sense. Stefanski was hired for one of the things was his offensive play calling abilities, which he did in Minnesota. So it makes sense for him. Van Pelt has never been an offensive coordinator, so that was one of the things that, tended to believe that it would be Stefanski at the end of the day. I don't have a problem with it. You look at coaches around the league, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Doug Peterson, Frank Reich. You can go on and on. They're head coaches that call plays. This is one of those things where, and the media here tends to be the dead horse every day. They were asking Stefanski, and Stefanski, you could tell, was getting annoyed. It's obviously the media's job to ask those questions, but um, at the end of the day, Stefanski always made the most sense. And honestly, if you look, let's just say a year from now, Van Pelt ends up calling the plays. It makes more sense for Stefanski to say, this is too much on my plate. Van Pelt's been doing a good job. He's going to call plays now. Than instead letting, Van Pelt call plays. Things don't work out. And then Stefanski has to pull him in, say, you're not going to call plays anymore. I'm going to take this over. So I think, this all made the sense right now to let Stefanski do it, and we'll see how it plays out.
I think one of the big things last year, and you could tell there was such a lack of communication when trying to get the plays in. And uh, I don't have the numbers, and I wanted to go back and do this, but I never did. Just go back and see how many times the Browns snapped the ball between five with less than 5 seconds left on the play clock, because it seemed like um, multiple times a game, and maybe about 50% of the time, they were getting up to the line with 10 seconds left, and then they're snapping the ball with less than 5, even 3 seconds, 2 seconds on the play clock, and you could just tell that they were having such a hard time getting the plays in. They were having a hard time communicating what they wanted to do. And ultimately, I think that's what the entire downfall was with the 2019 Browns offense, was the lack of communication. Do you believe that that's going to be a different case this year?
Yeah, I do. I'm sure Van Pelt's going to have a say in it. Stefanski did say there's going to be a collaborative effort, with the offensive game planning and the play calling. I think the problem last year was, Todd Munkin, from all accounts, he was, putting the game plan together and everything. And you could tell, like, the first drive, like, going by the script, things were good. I remember more times than not, like the Browns offense would do quite well on opening drives. The opening drive against Tennessee immediately comes to mind. But after that, it was, I think Freddie Kitchens just did it on his own. And I think you kind of saw that, he wasn't ready to call plays. And it goes back to make you wonder what happened 2 years ago, who was really at the helm of the offense when, all the changes were made and the Browns had a great run to the end of 2018. But, focusing on 2020, I think there's going to be a collaborative effort. I think, everybody's going to get along. Everybody kind of knows their role. But Stefanski said, like in Minnesota, it was a collaborative effort. We know that quite well because, Gary Kubiak was up there and he's been quite the offensive play caller during his career. So I think, Stefanski will lean on people if he needs help. And he seems like that kind of guy, seems like that kind of coach where, he will use all the resources available to make sure he succeeds. So if he's in a predicament, I'm sure he'll lean on, his offensive coordinator, obviously Alex Van Pelt, his position coaches, to put the Browns in the best situation to win.
Looking at the game on Sunday, the Browns released their injury report today, and Stefanski talked about it as well. It looks like J.C. Treader might play. He is listed as questionable for the game. The Browns did rule out a few players. They ruled out cornerback Greedy Williams and Kevin Johnson. They ruled out Mac Wilson and Chris Hubbard. Mac Wilson was definitely expected, as well as Hubbard. But this leaves the Browns very thin at cornerback. What do you think they're going to do to try some bodies on defense, especially at the defensive back position, where they're already thin to begin with when they suit up on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it right now, Denzel Ward, Terrence Mitchell, and Tavier Thomas are their only healthy cornerbacks. MJ Stewart's questionable, so obviously if he can go, that'll be a good thing. But, with the new practice squad rules and the ability to elevate two players from the squad for one game and then obviously they go right back to the practice squad, it would not shock me if the Browns use both of those to elevate AJ Green and Robert Jackson, who are the only corners on the practice squad, just because we need depth there. We need bodies. And um, it makes the most sense if they're going to do it, that those are going to be the guys that they bring up. Obviously, Robert Jackson was here last year. He was a special teams guy. You just have to wonder what would be the role for AJ Green. He's an undrafted rookie, didn't get a lot of, time during training camp. Obviously, no preseason games. So, would the Browns really depend on him? They obviously paid him a lot of money as an undrafted free agent, and obviously still have some belief in him that they kept him around on the practice squad. But if I were a betting man, I would say those are going to be the guys they call up because it's apparent they need help at the cornerback position right now with all the injuries.
If J.C. Treader isn't able to play on Sunday, I know he's listed as questionable, but if he isn't able to play, do you have a belief that the Browns will still be okay on the offensive line for the first game?
I would be definitely more nervous if they have to go out there to Baltimore and have to start two rookie offensive linemen against a tough defensive front with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sure Bill Callahan has got Jedrick Wills and Nick Harris ready, but um, you with the lack of reps. I mean, we're talking about this. There you can get all the reps in training camp and practice and everything, but they haven't had any live game reps, and that's what one of the things that hurt the Browns is not having preseason. We all kind of said it would be better, but maybe at the end of the day, it wasn't better, um, because the live game reps. You could practice all you want, but until you face a live pass rush or something like that, you're not really getting the full on experience. So, if Treader can't go, and obviously Treader didn't get any practice time at all, so we don't even know how he'll fit in this zone blocking scheme. I would feel more confident with him out there, even though he didn't get any practice, than putting out there a fifth round rookie center against a tough Baltimore pass rush.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads into what we want to talk about next and the keys of the game here. When you look at this Browns team and you look at the Ravens, obviously the Ravens had a very successful season last year. They had the reigning NFL MVP in Lamar Jackson. They bolstered their defense, which struggled at times along the defensive front with the signing of Calais Campbell. They drafted Patrick Queen in the draft to fit there in the linebacking core, trying to replace C.J. Mosley. Um, when you look at the Browns front, you know their offensive front with the offensive line, that was the biggest I think question mark last season on offense, and on top of Baker's quarterback play. But when you look at the offensive line and what they've done to rebuild it this offseason by drafting Jedrick Wells, by signing Jack Conklin, um, Reese drafting Nick Harris for as a potential replacement down the road, who's somebody who might play on Sunday if Treader is not able to. Um, when you look at what they've done and you look at the Ravens defensive line, I honestly think this is going to be one of the biggest matchups to watch. And one of the keys to the game is stopping that Ravens defensive front and being able to move the ball on offense, being able to run against that defensive front, and giving Baker as much time as possible.
Yeah, I think the biggest key to the game is I think they need to go run heavy. And early on, I don't expect the passing offense to be clicking on all cylinders during the first few weeks of this season. So if the Browns are going to have success offensively, it starts with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I expect them to run the ball a lot. Running the ball sets up this offense. If you look at previous history, how it worked with Stefanski in Minnesota, how it worked for Gary Kubiak down in Houston and Denver, the Shanahans, the success of the zone blocking, the wide zone scheme, it's been predicated on running the football. And I think if the Browns are going to have a chance to win this game, run the ball, chew up the clock, and keep the Ravens offense, more specifically Lamar Jackson, off the field. So I think, if they're going to win, like I just said, running the ball is going to be the key to this game.
That's what I talked with Matt Jurgensen on our last podcast episode. He was grateful to join us from the Baltimore Blitz podcast, and last year in that early matchup against the Ravens, where the Browns won 40-25, they dominated the line of scrimmage. They ran all over the Baltimore Ravens. They controlled the game. They controlled the play clock. Um, they controlled the time of possession in that game, and it was one of the two or three games the Ravens didn't lead in time of possession in their entire season last year. So I think when you look at a way to potentially beat Baltimore is to control the time of possession, is to run the football. Um, if you're able to keep the Ravens offense off the field for as long as possible, you have a good shot to win the game. And I think the other thing you have to do is convert. When you get into the red zone, when you get inside the 10-yard line, you have to put the ball in the end zone. You cannot get down there and trade field goals, because if you do that, the Ravens are going to beat you every time because of how high powered that offense is. So, um, on top of controlling the clock, I think you also have to convert into touchdowns when you get down there. And obviously, the other thing you have to do is attempt to stop the Ravens running game, which is going to be so difficult to do with Lamar Jackson, with the quadruple head that they have at running back. Um, they have four running backs that are really good. I think one's not going to play, but they still have three that are still very good running backs, and will be tough to handle. So uh, when you look at the keys to the game, I think it's control the play clock, control the time of possession, don't turn the football over, and also converting, as well as trying to stop that Ravens running attack.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, last year the Ravens had the most historic running offense in league history. They rushed for over nearly actually 3,300 yards. So we talk about what Lamar Jackson did. He rushed for over 1,200 yards. You have Mark Ingram, who is a 1,000-yard rusher. They had Gus Edwards, who is a quality back, averaged over 5 yards per carry. You mentioned Justice Hill. He's the running back that's going to be out, but they have J.K. Dobbins, who they drafted in the second round out of Ohio State. And like you mentioned on the podcast, the last podcast, it hurts that Dobbins is a Baltimore Raven, and we talk about how the Ravens and Steelers seem to get Buckeyes, and then we're kind of forced in a situation where we have to cheer against them as much as we love our Buckeyes. But yeah, if they can limit the running game, and if they can force Lamar to throw, while Lamar is a great thrower, their wide receivers aren't that reliable, and their offense is predicated on the running game as well. So if we can, force them to make some throws, and while their weapons aren't as reliable as ours, there could be a situation where we can create some turnovers and put the Browns in a situation to win.
If you have to, looking at this game, if you had to pick one matchup um, between the Browns and Ravens, one key thing to watch, what are you looking for on Sunday?
It's going to be Jedrick Wills against whoever they're going to throw up against him, whether it's Matt Judon, whether it's, they put Calais Campbell out there on a defensive end spot. Jedrick Wills, he's the 10th pick in the draft. It's a baptism by fire situation for him. He's been able to go up against Olivier Vernon and Myles Garrett, but now, he's going up against the opponent now. And you look at Judon, you look at Campbell, they're guys that can get after the quarterback. The Browns drafted Jedrick Wills to do just this, to protect Baker Mayfield's blind side. And, Wills is obviously going from right tackle to left tackle, but he's protected a quarterback's blind side like he did in Alabama. He was the right tackle protecting Tua Tagovailoa's blind side, and he did quite well in college. His first big test obviously is coming this Sunday, so that's going to be the matchup to watch. If he can limit, Judon and Campbell and whoever they throw at him on the Baltimore defensive front from getting to Baker Mayfield and giving Baker time to throw the ball downfield, or, opening up a running lane for Chubb or Hunt, it means that the Browns are going to be in a situation to win. So Wills versus the Baltimore pass rush is going to be my matchup to watch.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that, and I think that's certainly one to watch. For me, it's going to be Austin Hooper on Patrick Queen, their rookie linebacker. I know when I talked to Matt the other night, he was very afraid of what the Cleveland tight ends might be able to do against a rookie that they have there in the middle. And I think Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, and David Njoku are going to provide a lot of problems for the Ravens defense, because if they're, they have newer guys in the middle, they have a newer safety as well that's replacing Earl Thomas. If the Browns can control the middle of the field in the passing game with their tight ends, I think that they'll be able to really successfully move the football down the field. And I think that's one really key thing to watch, is see how our tight ends are able to target that middle of the field against those newer players in the middle that the Ravens have. And that's certainly the one I'm looking for.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be a good matchup to watch. I mean, Austin Hooper is making his Browns debut. He gets to put Patrick Queen on the spot in his NFL debut. So, I mean, that's going to be a good matchup to watch. And honestly, you look at it, you flip the sides. Mark Andrews, great tight end for the Ravens. Who's going to line up against him? Is it going to be Taki Taki? Is it going to be Jacob Phillips? Is it going to be one of the veterans, Goodson or Malcolm Smith? Like, that's going to be another interesting matchup to watch as well. The Browns, in recent memory, haven't been able to stop the tight ends of opposing teams, so that's going to be another key matchup to watch as well for the Browns defense. Are they going to be able to limit Mark Andrews? I think it was Nick Boyle. They brought somebody. There was another tight end. I know they traded Hayden Hurst in the offseason, but Lamar kind of leaned on Mark Andrews a lot because Marquise Hollywood Brown was dealing with injuries, and Miles Boykin did not have a great rookie season as a second-round pick. So if the Browns can limit Mark Andrews' production, it would be safe to say that the Browns are going to be in a situation where they can win on Sunday.
All right, let's get down to it. Let's get down to predicting this game. See who's going to win between the Browns and Ravens. Jack, who do you got winning on Sunday?
I am going to go with the Baltimore Ravens just because, uh, they're obviously the more experienced team. Uh, Most of their talent is back from last year. This is a team that went 14-2, had numerous Pro Bowlers. They did get rid of Hayden Hurst, they did get rid of Earl Thomas, but most of the core is there. They added some key pieces in the offseason that bolstered their defense in Queen and Campbell. I do expect the Browns to keep it close just because I think they are going to run the ball a lot, set up some play action. Beckham and Landry are going up against Humphrey and Peters, two great cornerbacks. So that's going to be another fun matchup to watch as well. I just expect Baltimore to have the edge just because they're the more experienced team as a collective unit. But don't get down on the Browns. To our listeners, it's only 1 week, and I expect some growing pains with this team starting out. So I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say Ravens 27, Browns 21.
Yeah, this one's going to be a tough one. I know I really want the Browns to win. I know we all do, but um, there's just too many question marks for me in week one for the Browns, whether it's uh, Jedrick Wills starting at left tackle for the first time as a rookie, whether J.C. Treader is going to play, how Kevin Stefanski is going to be able to call plays week one, and then the defense, having three quarterbacks out right now, um, not being thin at linebacker to begin the season, not having Grant Delpit out there. Um, there's just too many question marks for me right now against a Ravens team who is pretty much fully loaded and ready to go, returning their um, high-powered offensive attack that they had last year with the reigning NFL MVP. So right now, there's really not much, unfortunately, you could do to convince me that the Ravens aren't going to win this football game. So I have Baltimore winning this one. I will say 34 to 20. The Ravens are going to win this one, unfortunately. But there's just, like I said, there's too many question marks for me. And um, unfortunately, I don't think the Browns come away a winner in week one. Looking at the rest of the season, I know you and I and Jack Duffin put out an article yesterday, kind of giving our predictions for the entire 2020 season, in terms of giving our divisional winners, giving the wild card Super Bowl matchups. Um, where do you think the Browns finish this season, and do you think that they can make the playoffs in year one with Kevin Stefanski as head coach?
I expect it to be a slow start just because, and Stefanski even alluded to it. They've learned the offense. Now it's time to master it. Obviously the lack of preseason games hurts them in that department. So the first few weeks, I expect them to start slow. I hope the fans, they've been patient. They just got to be patient a little longer. I expect it to start out slow, but then I think in the second half they'll get it together. Um, they're playing some teams in that second half where you know they're going to be like in tank mode by the time they get to that point, and I expect the Browns to make like that second half run to where they beat the crap out of the bad teams and then they fight against the good teams, the Ravens and the Steelers, and uh they got the Eagles and the Texans in the second half. Like they're gonna play good football in that second half. I expect them to go 9-7, and I did have them as the third wild card team. As they expanded the playoffs this year, there's three wild card teams. I put the Browns in that spot. Um, there's too much talent on the offensive side of the football. I have my questions about Jedrick Wills at left tackle as a rookie. There's questions about the linebacker position. Hopefully Mac Wilson's back in the second half. We could see what he can do in this defense. And then obviously, the concerns early with the cornerback depth because Greedy Williams is out, because Kevin Johnson is out. So, growing pains at the start, but I think the Browns put it together in the second half. I think Baker has a bounce back year. They lean heavily on Chubb and Hunt, who I think are going to be the MVPs of the team. And then, you hope Beckham and Landry stay healthy and be the wide receivers we know they are. The addition of Hooper is going to be excellent. So I definitely expect the Browns to be a playoff team this year and finally break that drought that's been going on. I think, was it 16, 17 seasons now?
It would be. This should be year 18, I think, the 2002. So,
It's been a
um,
long time. Let's just put it that way.
yeah, it's been a very long time, and um, I'm kind of with you. I don't think I think they're going to be 8-8, which is close to your 9-7. I think they're going to miss the playoffs just by a game with the record. But obviously, that can go one way or the other, um, depending on how the other teams shake out. But I think they're just going to just miss the playoffs. I think they're going to be 8-8. I have them 3-3 in the division, beating Cincinnati twice, beating Pittsburgh one or two times, and then losing both times to Baltimore, and then winning. Five of those other games that they have against the rest of the schedule. So, um, yeah, I think 8-8 would be a successful season, to be honest. Even though if they don't make the playoffs, I think moving in the right direction, having a 500 record on top of Baker playing really well. As long as I can see a lot of progress from this team in terms of Baker Mayfield taking the next step, uh, having the defense somewhat come together with them being very thin to start the season, especially in that defensive backfield. Um, as long as I could see some progress, I would be very thrilled. And if you could have the end of the year being 8-8, maybe just missing the playoffs or sneaking in, I think there's a lot you can build upon. And um, they still have a lot of cap space going into next offseason. I know there's some guys that they need to take care of. They had their draft picks, so if they're able to show some progress, be 500, I think that would be a successful season, in my opinion.
Definitely. It's not about how they look this Sunday. It's about, do they show progress? Players are developing as the weeks go on in the season. Everybody can have their freak out moment like we all did last year at the opener when they got annihilated by Tennessee. But as long as we see progression and growth as the season goes on, and they look good in week 16 compared to what they look in week 1, then the Browns are going in the right direction. They had the right coach in Kevin Stefanski. They had the right quarterback in Baker Mayfield. And they had the right GM in Andrew Berry, who's going to continue to build the roster and look for any possible way to add talent and to the already solid collection they have established.
Hopefully we have a good season. Hopefully things don't go down the tank like they have in many of the previous seasons. So I know we're really excited for some Browns football on Sunday. It was great watching some of the Kansas City and Houston game last night. Um, it's just great to have football back, kind of getting back to a sense of normalcy. And you and I will be here all season to talk about it and break things down and enjoy some football. And hopefully we'll get some Ohio State football as well to maybe talk about a little bit. But um, hopefully you and I aren't talking draft by week 9, which we've done many times over the course of the first 3 years on this podcast. So hopefully we have a good season, a lot of good progress, and as we get on out of here, Jack, is there anything else you want to mention?
Just keep it locked on the dogland.com for all the latest pertaining to the Cleveland Browns.
As always, you can follow Jack on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Anthony Joki, Joki. Follow the website and podcast on there as well at the Dogland. Facebook too. With all that, we're going to get on out of here. And most importantly, go Browns.